Chapter 40. Circumstances, situations, and events are perceived through the sequential experience pattern of the earth plane through a reformatting of a greater experiential matrix. It compares somewhat to unraveling a knitted sweater into a long thread that only retains the individual kinks that made up the stitches. It is impossible to ascertain what the sweater looked like from the pile of kinky yarn that is then seen. Thus each event in the sequential chain of events is all that can be perceived of an existing prototype that is whole and complete. Once the experiential chain of sequential events has reached a completion point of its cycle and a reality is experienced as complete, a perspective of the entire event can be glimpsed. However, it is only one perspective of a holographic whole. The concept of time that is the basis for perceiving sequential events exists and is experienced differently within each level of manifested reality. With the ability to perceive a greater and greater perspective of a whole, the importance of minute-by-minute time calculation becomes less relevant. What becomes important is the encompassing process that contains the situation or event as it is completed into a whole experience. It is like watching the sweater being knitted as a whole from freshly spun yarn. As it is knitted, it becomes the background for the embroidery of individual experiences. The same sweater background is perceived and embroidered by each individual who is living within its influence. Each sees their version of the sequence of events, situations, and circumstances that then makes up a larger and larger group experience as perceived by all from a myriad of perspectives. The consensus of the group perspective then becomes the mass consciousness experience. Out of that generalized agreement, laws, rules, and regulations govern what is generally acceptable behavior. It is this consensus of acceptable group behavior that is so important to the oppressors to influence. The more uniform and regimented the world population is, the easier it is to influence and control through identity in a global perception rather than within cultural, ethnic, or national allegiances. At the same time as the globalists are attempting to standardize the human life experience into a robotic and more easily controllable worldwide situation, the human psyche is longing to individualize. The larger view of this intense struggle between containment and creative expression is beginning to clarify into groups of varying experiences. A large percentage are being slowed and standardized into a hypnotic zombie-like existence. Others are caught up in frenzied accomplishment of various extremes of life experiences. Some are lost in various group foci that exploit their fellow humans, etc. Underlying the whole chaotic scene are the mind manipulators that carry out their influencing experiments on their human sacrificial guinea pigs. Mind programming, medical experiments in the form of prescription drugs and vaccines, illegal hard drugs, food additives, food combinations, unseen vibratory waves from commonly used communication devices, appliances, etc., all influence the human body and the vibratory, electrical spark of life that animates it. These conveniences provide seeming comfort and ease and are thus difficult to think of giving up. It is not the concept of them that is counterproductive to human experience, it is that they have been designed in a planned format that is intended to accomplish very specific negative goals for mind manipulation and control of body functions. In other words, all these beneficial items can be made within a format that would support the life forms on this planet. It is important to understand that these were designed purposefully to slow and confuse the vibratory life force that inhabits all living forms on this planet with the direct objective of eliminating all but the most resistant, that these may then breed the most adaptive future slave stereotype. Mankind must come to realize that just as they have thought nothing of doing genetic breeding of life forms that they considered lesser, so also are they considered a lesser life form by those who direct these human lackeys to misuse their fellow humans. Those who allow themselves to be used in this way are given no more and probably even less appreciation than the average human. If these will betray their own kind, then they are truly untrustworthy, and that is not a desirable characteristic for a slave archetype. It is important that as many open-minded humans as possible come into the understanding of just what their true status is insofar as those who consider this planet their colony are concerned. This is not meant to cause any re-evaluation of the worth of humanity to a lesser value. Indeed not. Humanity has running through its veins the blood, the DNA, the potential of all self-aware beings to evolve within the plan of creation. What is important to grasp is that humanity faces the enviable challenge of throwing off the yoke of outside influence and facing up to taking responsibility for creating its own future. It will be through growing to accept this challenge and creating a way through this experience that the true autonomous qualities that have been deliberately forced into a latent state must now be called forth and brought into focused application. These are not the warlike tendencies of competition that have been cultivated and encouraged, but those of responsibility, courage, and cooperation that will bring about the spiraling of evolvement into galactic citizenship. These will lift the human consciousness out of the seemingly hopeless struggle that surrounds it and allow the planet and those inhabitants who change their perspective to transcend this present situation. Those who identify with this new paradigm of experience will move into it. Those who do not, will be allowed more experience until another opportunity is created individually or collectively to choose again. Advancement is available to those that choose carefully and decidedly. Again, each is encouraged to consider thoughtfully. Chapter 41. Since the beginning of the time that this planet was inhabited with warm-blooded mammals, the process of evolvement toward self-awareness was the goal. This is a normal and natural process. What is measured as time by this self-awareness as it progresses and is refined appears as short segments in what appears as a long process. Again, we refer to the holographic picture of the whole process. The linear sequential observation of the self-aware ego has no inkling of the larger picture until such time as explanations of how it really is can be placed within his, her perception and are accepted as truth. The convenience of the light and darkness cycles as a measure of time determines the perception. However, there are other means of measuring time that can be adopted. The longer the cycle measured, the longer the life experience of the individual. Though it might seem impossible, were another measurement adopted, then the lifespan in actuality could be either lengthened or shortened depending on the content of the cycle. How could this content be compared? Not easily by the participants. The point being that the experience is conditional on the criteria for measurement used by the observing egos. These are agreed upon through the generalization of the input of the many opinions of the total group. This is a powerful tool to control insofar as manipulating a large group is concerned and explains the grouping of people in cities and the efforts of using mass media methods to shape the generalizations of opinions. Some of those now shaping the generalizations are: power and permission are in the hands of an outside deity. Violence is the way to resolve differences. Humans are more different than they are similar. Being right is more important than understanding. The past controls the future. Pleasure and luxury are the necessities of happiness. Complexity is more satisfying than simplicity. Might makes right. Service and sacrifice are the ultimate gifts one can make to the future of mankind. There is not enough, and those that have must take it away from others. If it isn't right, laws and regulations can fix it, or more control is the answer. The list could go on and on. What is it then that the messages found in these small books would replace as currently held beliefs? Responsibility and freedom are interchangeable terms. Power and permission are retained or given away by choice. Purposeful focused intention is an all-powerful tool. What is believable must be logical. Responsibility negates victim, abuser attitudes. Where the attention is where the intention is. Like attracts both sides of the likeness experience. There is an important distinction between indifference and allowance. Humanity has a choice about its future experiences. Rescue without participation is not an available option. The new is invoked in kind before the end of the old. Chaos is a necessary stage in the process of change. Commitment to a goal attracts assistance to aid its completion. Through the reading and the rereading of these messages, these and other principles toward the choice of choosing the destiny of mankind on this planet will become a deeply rooted focus of intent by all those who choose to be a part of this process. It is logical, and it is one focus that can be participated in by those with many divergent views without the necessity to defend or attack the diverse thoughts the new paradigm invokes. The desire for a new paradigm of experience is all-inclusive. The intent focused for the highest and best good for all concerned allows for thought thinking to bring forth an organizing agreement that will profoundly include all rational possibilities into an encompassing plan that will be readily acceptable. Humans becoming will indeed become. It is a focus of energy that is all-inclusive and yet extremely discriminating as to choice for participation. It offers the long-awaited opportunity to mankind to transcend its colonial status for sovereignty and participation within its galactic community. The question arises now as to how long before those who desire this planet to remain as a colony will allow this to go on, providing the humans of Earth to free themselves through declaring their sovereign ownership of this planet. That is a part of the plan that is well encompassed. It is first and foremost the job of humanity to make its choice and to declare their intent within their own awareness and commit to assuming the necessary responsibility to focus their purposeful intent into the universal laws and allow the picture to clarify. Thought thinking is wise indeed. Some things are better left to resolve themselves through allowance. However, remember that allowance is not indifference, it is watchful observance with emotional expectation anticipating the outcome of purposeful intent. It is change through conscious participation in expressing the principle of life that is known through the gift of self-awareness. It is found by perceiving what is known and felt within the feeling aspect of awareness through logical consideration of questions asked within the thinking process. It is thought thinking within the individual consciousness and testing its conclusions through the feeling aspect as to their validity in quiet contemplation, knowing there is no need to compare the conclusions to anyone else's process of decision. With no need to defend the conclusions, true contemplation is available. The consensus is important only to the contemplator. Think about it. End chapter 41.